Terraria is a great game with a wide variety of bosses, enemies, and NPCs. However, out of all these NPCs, only one of them is considered to be almost completely useless. That NPC is the Guide. The Guide is a simple fellow. He's there from the very beginning, standing around and occasionally giving you some helpful information. Besides showing you how to craft items, the Guide doesn't do much else, and all he uses to defend himself is a simple wooden bow. But today I'm here to change that. No longer will the Guide be useless. I'm going to prove that the Guide is so awesome and so useful that he can even defeat the game's final boss. To begin, let's examine the Guide by himself. Since he only can occasionally fire arrows from a wooden bow, he doesn't do much, and he's usually easy fodder for enemies and bosses. However, if we start to amass more than one Guide, say a Guide army, he becomes a much more powerful force. Here I have a large group of 50 Guides. Together they're much more powerful than before. They can even defeat the King Slime. However, this is just the beginning. After defeating the Wall of Flesh and entering hard mode, the Guide gains fire arrows. These arrows do more damage and have the flame effect. Put that together with another 50 Guides and we have a serious army. This group can handle all kinds of bosses. However, it's still not enough. To unlock the Guide's true potential, I've given them even better arrows. These arrows do much more damage and have piercing. At this level, the Guides can shred bosses. Even bosses like Plantera, Duke Fishron, and Empress of Light stand no chance. So, with such a powerful army of Guides, it should be easy work to beat the Moonlord. However, beating the Moonlord is actually much harder than you would expect. As evil as the Moonlord is, to ruin the Guide's challenge, he made him unable to attack the Moonlord. Because of this, even an army of 100 Guides can do nothing. So it would seem that the challenge is over, impossible since the Guides can't even target the Moonlord. However, this isn't quite right. You see, when an enemy is near the Guide, he will fire an arrow. This arrow fired then becomes a projectile. And this projectile acts in the same way as one fired from a player's bow, meaning it is able to damage the Moonlord. But how can we get the Guide to fire arrows at the Moonlord if he can't target him? Well, it's quite simple. You see, the Guide is hardwired to fire arrows at any hostile mobs near him. And if you have multiple Guides that all fire at the mob at the same time, some of those arrows will go through the mob after it dies. So if you make the Guide constantly firing at mobs, he acts as a sort of turret that constantly fires arrows. Of course, creating such a thing is very difficult. However, after months of research and hard work, the Guides finally developed a working mob-powered Guide turret. The way it works is quite simple. One area of the turret holds the Guide or multiple Guides. These Guides act as a sort of ammo. Next to these Guides is a monster statue. This statue is wired to a timer so that monsters will spawn in constantly. Since the mobs are right next to the Guides will fire arrows. And since there are multiple Guides, multiple arrows will be fired. Because the mobs will constantly spawn and die, the Guides will be constantly firing arrows, making a powerful Guide turret. The design worked, but it lacked style. So, with another month of hard work, the Guides implemented this turret design into all forms of Guide-based warfare. There were the Guide Copters, aerial units of Guide-based destruction. Then there were the Guide Tanks, ground units piloted solely by Guides. And lastly, there was the most powerful creation ever to come from Guide technology. The mechanical beast forged in the depths of hell, the Guidra. Gathering together their forces, the Guides prepared themselves for the final battle. Their helicopters were ready, their tanks were loaded, their arrows were sharpened, and after recruiting the help from a couple of nurses to help them not die, they were ready for battle. And so, the battle begins. Though the Moonlord is powerful and he has a lot of health, the Guide's sheer number, sheer power, and sheer intelligence overwhelmed him. First, his hands were destroyed. Then his forehead eyeball. Lastly, his core was exposed. Even though he was healing himself by sucking health from the non-existent player, the Guides were still taking him down. The Moonlord couldn't heal fast enough. Because of their healing from the nurses, there was nothing that the Moonlord could do. There were just too many of them. And with one final volley of arrows, the Guides had finally done it. They had defeated the Moonlord all by themselves. And in celebration of their victory, the Guides decided to kill every other boss in the game. Hopefully, this achievement can prove that the Guides are useful for something after all. There was nothing that could defeat them. No one could hold them back. They were unstoppable. But wait, what's that in the distance? That shadowy figure. it looks like another boss has shown up. The subscribe button. Help the guides out in their conquest of the entire Earth. Smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.